this video, you will come to know about 2 marks question answer from chapter 1 of Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. The first question is, what is Netherfield Park? The answer is, Netherfield Park is a palatial house. It is 3 miles away from Longbourn, which is the residence of the Bennet family. Mr. Bingley takes Netherfield Park on rent and lives there with Miss Bingley, Mr. Hurst, and Mrs. Hurst. The second question is, name the 5 daughters of the Bennet couple. Whom do the Bennet couples want to marry with Mr. Bingley? The answer is, the 5 daughters of the Bennet couple are Jane Bennet, eldest daughter, Elizabeth Bennet, second daughter, Mary Bennet, third daughter, Catherine Bennet, fourth daughter, and Lydia Bennet, youngest daughter. Mr. Bennet wants Mr. Bingley to marry Elizabeth. Mrs. Bennet, however, wants Mr. Bingley to marry Jane or Lydia. The third question is, what is Mrs. Bennet's plan regarding making Mr. Bingley marry one of her daughters, especially Jane or Lydia? The answer is, Mrs. Bennet finds that the arrival of a rich bachelor like Mr. Bingley at Netherfield Park is a good scope to make one of her daughters married to him. Her plan is that at first her husband, Mr. Bennet, will go to Netherfield Park, meet Mr. Bingley, and in turn invite Mr. Bingley to Longbourn. The arrival of Mr. Bingley to Longbourn, according to this plan, will acquaint him with the Bennet daughters. This acquaintance, if aided by chance, may develop into love and culminate in marriage. The fourth question is, why does Mr. Bennet not agree with Mrs. Bennet's plan that he would go to Netherfield Park to be acquainted with Mr. Bingley and would in the turn invite him to come to their house? The answer is, Mr. Bennet does not agree with Mrs. Bennet's plan that he would go to Netherfield Park to be acquainted with Mr. Bingley and would in turn invite Mr. Bingley to their house for 2 reasons. First, Mr. Bennet does not take much interest in the affair of marriages of his daughter. Secondly, he is ever prepared to make fun of his wife by opposing whatever she tells him to do. Needless to say, the proposal of Mrs. Bennet gives him such a scope. The fifth question is, how is Mr. Bennet described in the opening chapter of the novel Pride and Prejudice? The answer is, in the opening chapter of the novel Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Bennet is described as an odd mixture of quick words, sarcastic humor, reserve, caprice, and as having a married life of 23 years with Mrs. Bennet. The sixth question is, how is Mrs. Bennet described by Jane Austen in the opening chapter of Pride and Prejudice? The answer is, in the opening chapters of Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Bennet is described as a woman of mean undertaking, little information, and uncertain temper. It is also said that on being dissatisfied, Mrs. Bennet fancies that she is nervous. Most importantly, the only business of the life of Mrs. Bennet is to see her daughters married. The final question is, how does the novel Pride and Prejudice open? The answer is, the novel Pride and Prejudice opens with an interesting remark by the author. The remark is, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man is possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. It is true in the case of some bachelors with a good fortune, but it does not apply to every bachelor who is in possession of a considerable wealth. Full stop. Thank you.